So I've been using the Apple Watch SE3 for a little while, Apple's new entry-level wearable, and while this isn't some reinvention of the Apple Watch as a product, it does bring some key upgrades that make it pretty good value for your money. Apple's always pitched the SE line as the everyone's Apple Watch, the one you buy if you don't need the extreme ruggedness of the Ultra or the bleeding edge health sensors of the series models. It's also the one Apple pushes for families if you're a parent buying a watch for your kids with family setup, or if you want a wearable for an elderly relative. The SE's positioned perfectly. The thing is, up until now, there was always this feeling you were missing out on one crucial feature, and for me that was the always-on display. Without it, the SE felt like it was permanently stuck in the past, especially when this has been a staple of the regular watches since the Series 5. Thankfully, with the SE3, that problem is finally resolved. Let's start with the design though, because if you've seen an Apple Watch in the last 5 years, you already know what this looks like. The SE3 doesn't borrow the edge-to-edge design the Series 11 has, and it doesn't have the bulky ruggedness of the Ultra. Instead, it's the same design language we've had since the Series 4. And I'll be honest, I was a bit surprised we did not get the Series 7's design language, which had thinner bezels, but it's not the end of the world. It still looks clean, relatively modern, and very much like an Apple Watch. The sizes remain the same, 40mm and 44mm, and while the bezels are thicker compared to the Series 11, it doesn't look too outdated. Build quality is also solid. Apple's sticking with aluminium here, which keeps the price down, but also makes the watch nice and lightweight. The INX glass on the display has been upgraded this year, and Apple claims it's 4 times more resistant to scratches. Too early for me to confirm if this is true, but I will say the older INX glass on my Series 6 was actually perfectly fine. I'm not someone who babies their watch. I've brushed it against walls, banged it on my desk, and it still looks pretty pristine. So the SE3 should also be durable enough. Now, one small downside are the color options. You only get Midnight and Starlight, and while these finishes still appeal to most, it would have been nice to see Apple offer a little more variety. The real star of the show though undoubtedly is the always-on display. Finally, after years of Apple refusing to bring this to the SE line, it's here guys, and I can't stress enough how much of a difference this makes. Being able to just glance your wrist and see the time, your complications, or your workout progress without flicking your wrist or even tapping the screen, it does transform the experience. It makes the SE feel like a true Apple Watch. Now yes, the panel itself is more limited compared to the Series 11, it maxes out 1000 nits of brightness, which is fine indoors, but can struggle sometimes in bright direct sunlight, though honestly it's not that big of an issue. And the bezels are thicker of course, so it doesn't have that slick edge-to-edge look, but in daily life, those trade-offs don't matter nearly as much as simply having this always on display. Speaking of things you should always keep on, don't forget to click that subscribe button. That was not a great segue, but I would appreciate it, and also there's a new hype button as well. It genuinely helps a small channel like mine grow, and also means you'll never miss my deep dives into the Apple ecosystem, so join the Surround Byte gang now, it's massively appreciated. Alright, let's talk about performance, and this is where the SE3 really punches above its weight. Apple didn't cut any corners here. This watch runs on the same S10 chipset found in the Series 11 and the Ultra 3. That means watchOS 26 is just as fluid on this $249 watch as it is on the $799 Ultra. Apps open instantly, scrolling is smooth, animations are fluid, and the whole experience feels premium. The chip also unlocks some neat features that were previously missing from the SE line. Gestures like double tap and the new wrist flick work just as well as they do on the flagship models, and Siri feels faster as well thanks to on-device processing. You can now ask questions about health stats directly from the watch, which makes it feel much more independent. Plus, Apple's finally bumped up storage to 64 gigs, the same as the pricier models, so you can load up with music, podcasts, or apps without worrying about space. Now, the health tracking solution is a bit of a mixed bag because the SE does not have everything. Apple's still keeping the ECG and blood oxygen monitoring locked to the higher-end watches. That's a bit disappointing considering the ECG came out with the Series 4, but it's not unexpected given the price point. What you do get though is the core stuff most people actually care about: heart rate monitoring with alerts, activity and workout tracking, fall detection, cycle tracking with temperature sensing, sleep tracking, and now even sleep score. The last one is particularly nice because it gives you a clear daily grades for how well you slept instead of just raw data. The SE3 also supports Apple's new sleep apnea detection feature, which is a bigger deal than it sounds. Even without the full-on ECG hardware, the watch can still monitor breathing patterns at night and flag potential issues. It's not a medical diagnosis, but it's a kind of preventable insight that can genuinely make a difference for people, and for an entry-level watch, that is impressive. Battery life is familiar, officially rated at 18 hours, which basically means all-day usage, according to Apple. With low power mode, you can stretch this to 32 hours. In my own usage, I've been comfortably getting through a full day of usage, though for sleep tracking I do usually top up before I go to bed, and that's where faster charging comes in handy. Plug it in for 15 minutes and you'll get around 8 hours of use, which is pretty awesome. Connectivity is another quiet upgrade this year. The cellular model now supports 5G. I don't have the cellular version because I personally don't need that, but better speeds are nice to have and 5G should be more efficient as well. The SE also still supports family setup, as I mentioned earlier, which I'm sure is going to be one of the biggest reasons people buy the SE. If you're buying a watch for a child or an elderly relative, being able to manage it all from your iPhone without them needing one is incredibly useful. It's one of those features you don't really appreciate till you actually use it. Durability also remains solid. The SE3 is water resistant to 50 meters, so swimming is fine, though it isn't dust resistant like the more higher end watches. It does support Apple Pay though, which is always handy, and crash detection is here as well, which I thankfully haven't had to test, but it's a nice peace of mind knowing it's there. You can also play music directly on the watch now using the built-in speaker, but honestly I don't see the point in that. What's more useful are the microphones gaining voice isolation, meaning you do sound clearer on calls. So what are the downsides? Well, to recap, the display is still capped at 1000 nits of brightness, which is okay usually but can struggle sometimes under harsh sunlight. There's no ECG or blood oxygen, so if you're someone who really values the full suite of health tracking, you'll feel the absence. And the design, while classic, does look a little dated next to the Series 11's slimmer bezels. But honestly, those feel like nitpicks when you consider the price, because ultimately for $249 in the US or £219 in the UK, the fact you're getting the same performance as a Series 11, the always-on display, fast charging, and the core Apple Watch features do make this a pretty good deal. However, if you're someone who's open to the refurbished and used market, I will say that here in the UK I've noticed that the Series 9 refurbished from Apple is the same price as the SE3, and that comes with a newer design and a brighter, larger display. Also remember that Apple refurbished is basically like new. I've had a great experience with them in the past. And of course, if you go for third-party options, you may be able to find even better deals. There are some advantages with the SE like the newer chips and 5G, but ultimately I would recommend you shop around because there are deals to be had. And also if you wait a few weeks, this SE3 will get cheaper as well, and so I'll definitely leave links below to buy this with updated pricing. To wrap up, the SE3 isn't flashy, it's not trying to be, but what it does is fix one big omission that made the SE lineup feel compromised in the past while keeping everything else smooth, fast and reliable. For most, this is the Apple Watch to buy if you don't care about ECGs, if you don't care about ultra rugged dive features, and you just want a dependable, affordable watch that nails the essentials, this is it. And because it's running the same chipset as the flagships, I fully expect this to feel just as fast 3 or 4 years down the line. If you enjoyed this review and found it helpful, do me a huge favor guys, hit that subscribe button and also the hype button. It really does help a smaller channel like mine grow, and it means you'll get more long-term Apple deep dives like this delivered straight to your feeds. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.